All right, thank you everyone for joining. We're going to get started in just about a minute here. All right, hello everyone. My name is Brandon. Thank you again for joining our workshop. I currently work at MLH. I run our ambassador program. But before this, I was a project manager at various SaaS companies and startups and all that good stuff. So with that, I'm hoping to come in today, just give a little bit of help, from a little bit more senior perspective on uh, how to do your projects, how to stay, how to stay focused and make sure that you're building for the right reasons. What do I mean by building for the right reasons? I really just mean uh, you getting in, making sure that you're working on something that's going to be used and that you're not kind of wasting your efforts building out some like really cool tech that's going to be an extraneous feature. Um, so yeah, we're going to jump a little bit deeper into that soon here. So if you're watching this, this is going to be super applicable for just about anyone who has any relationship to hackathons. Um, so maybe you're not sure what to build, and you want to know like how to get out of that bind and get over that hump and decide what am I going to work on at this event. Or maybe you're halfway through your project and you're hitting a brick wall. This will help with that too. Also, maybe you're close to the end or you've already finished and you're just kind of not sure if others are going to understand your project. So you want to work on a pitch, or maybe just a good way to kind of frame what you're working on. This will help with that as well. So what we're going to do is thematically, we are going to learn how to start with the problem and not the product. So what I mean by that is whenever we're thinking about our projects, whether we're at conception, halfway through, or at the end, when we're thinking about kind of what to do next and how to prioritize what to do next, we're going to focus on the underlying problem that inspires the project and not just focusing on the tech itself. So this is going to help with two big things: ensuring relevancy, so that again, you're not overbuilding, and on that overbuilding, you're not building extra stuff. There's no feature creep. There's no, you're not building 10 products when you really only need two. All right, so how are we going to do that? I know that sounds like a lot. It's like, how are we going to sit here and figure out, kind of how to run our, how to do our project at any stage, yada yada. We're going to ask ourselves some questions. So we're going to ask before we hack, uh, but who are we asking? It's ourselves, and we have just you to ask yourself at any stage. That will, guaranteed give you a clearer idea of what to do next. So I recommend screenshotting these. Uh, Keep these questions handy, adapt them for yourself later on. But these are my 5 golden questions when it comes to making sure that you're building the right thing. Um, so these are the questions that we will ask ourselves at any point while we're at a hackathon. What is the underlying problem that we're attempting to solve? What are the current solutions out in the world to this problem, if any? And if there aren't any, we're going to have to explore kind of what happens if there's no solution. And then what is our proposed solution? And then how is our solution better than what happens today? It might sound obvious, but it's not. And so we're going to have to learn how to quantify that. And then the last part is, what's the next steps into getting us on our journey and just writing those out. So diving in a little deeper. All right. So on that first question, when we're asking ourselves, what is the problem that we're trying to solve, identify it, quantify it? I mean, every single step here, this is going to really help you ensure that you're working on the right things. You might show up to a hackathon, or maybe you trying to start a company or anything, right? And you're just trying to figure out like, tech first. Like maybe you say, hey, I really want to work on something with the blockchain. That's cool. But we kind of have to ask ourselves why. And that's, where the problem comes in. So maybe you find that you have a particular issue that you can't seem to solve. Like myself, I like sports. I like retro jerseys, right? So maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify the problem of it's really, really hard to find a retro jersey. Okay, so that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to think tech forward. I'm not going to say, hey, I have to use a blockchain or I have to use this particular API per se. I'm just going to focus on, I want to make it easier to find retro jerseys. That's my problem. So then number two, what are the current solutions to that problem? Okay, so this is when I would list out all of the things that I do to try to address it being difficult. And I also means like other people in my shoes. What do people do to try to find retro jerseys? You've got eBay alerts, you got Twitter accounts you can follow, and there's some like exclusive newsletters from vintage stores that you can follow. Okay, so maybe that's what I do. I write out all of those current solutions. All right. Now, I have to think about what is my proposed solution here. And I am saying, hey, you know what? I want an integrated system where I only have to have one place to check to find and to find the jersey that I want, right? So my solution is going to be a dashboard where I can plug in and get information from all different sources. Maybe I need to use the eBay API, or maybe I need to uh, you know connect to with Amazon. Maybe I need to connect directly into Shopify and have particular keywords. So my solution, I lay it out. I've got my dashboard, and the way you can think about this here is making a README, right? So you want to start with that even before you get straight into the code. You want to make sure that you're like tying what your solution is back to that underlying problem. So it's step by step here. All right. So then next, now we have to sit down, figure out, okay, what are we offering? Like, what's more efficient than the current state? And again, it might seem obvious. It's like, well, I had to go to a lot of places to find these jerseys versus now I only have one place to go to. Great. But for any project, what you really want to do here is take the time and lay out what that means. So, okay, that's time saved. Like, what are the underlying variables here that you're gaining from actually interacting with the product once it's built? For me, it's time saved. It's quicker access. It's not missing out on the deals that I want because maybe someone else found it before I did. So it's speed to action. And then so in doing so, when you list out all of the variables of what someone would gain from using your product, you also then get to learn more about all the different applications and different ways that people can interact with it. So you might see that, hey, this is a great opportunity to monetize this particular portion. So maybe you're not working on a jersey app like I am, right? Maybe you're working on some sort of, novel way with one another on a blockchain. Cool. When you're actually listing out all of those variables, you can then see very clearly, like, hey, maybe you have a whole application over here in ed tech because you can get, large amounts of information to one person and verify that someone else did it. Great. This process will help guide you into making sure that you can talk about it later. All the applications for your product or your project, and the best way, like this little image here, just think about it like a software comparison chart. So you write out, kind of the features of using your solution that you are about to build versus the current state. And you see very clearly, like, what are you offering that you can't do currently? And then this brings us to the last question. And this question is kind of open-ended, right? It's hard. This one takes a little bit more thinking. It's not as clear as just labeling things out. But so now let's think back. Maybe some of you are working on your project from the very beginning and you're just trying to come up with your idea. So answering this question in that case would mean, maybe you got to find a team. You have to find someone who knows how to use a certain piece of technology you identified that you'll have to use. Maybe you need to, maybe you don't have anyone and you have to study how to, interact with APIs. Maybe you've never done that before. Um, so it's literally listing out everything that you need to do next to get you to build that MVP. And then switch it up a little. Maybe you were halfway through your maybe you were halfway through sort of like building out what you wanted to build, and you were just going through these questions to figure out like if you're on the right track and you had good applications. Okay. So now if you're in that case, this question would mean more of like, you know, what are the final steps here? What's missing from what I have to what I need? Is it a technology gap? Do I need more people who know more tech to get in there? Or is it a functionality gap in that, maybe we thought we could do something that we just can't? And so, maybe you need to kind of pivot on the scale of whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Or, maybe you just learned that, hey, maybe our problem actually isn't as big of a problem as we thought that it is. And that's okay. A lot of times, sometimes, you're going to be working on something, you think that there's this great issue out there, but then when you do a little bit more research, you think that, hey, maybe I'm overbuilding a solution to a problem that people don't actually have. And this is a good exercise you can do to kind of make sure that you're not falling in that bucket and that you are working on something that is going to be used. And then that last case is, okay, so now we're at the end and we've built everything. We know that it's for it's for a good audience. Our tech is good, but we're stuck on how to pitch it to other people and get other people excited and encourage them to use it. Well, that's when running through these questions is effectively running through a pitch. So if you can just kind of answer each of these questions in one sentence and then remove the questions, those answers combined is an elevator pitch. So, like, let's take it back to my Jersey example, right? I'm just going to run through and give answers to each of these, and that can be a pitch. Like, if I just meet someone on the street and I'm trying to get them to use my app. So I just say, hey, like, I like your jersey. That's really cool. I also like vintage jerseys. Let me tell you about this app that I've got real quick. You know how it's like super, super hard? Yeah, it is hard to find jerseys. Great. I hate having to like web crawl through eBay and all in Twitter and all these other channels to find the jersey I want. But what I just built here is an app that brings this all into one place. See, now I'm at number 3. And then I say, right now, all I have to do is look at one screen. And I've got information from eBay, Twitter, Poshmark, everyone who is selling vintage collectibles. Like, I've got it right here. And then, that gets me to 4. And then, so I'm on number 5 now. And then I just get to close this pitch right away in the elevator with, do you want to download this app and check it out? And you just give them the link. Like, it's super simple. You can translate that onto a stage where you're presenting at a hackathon or, in a boardroom, even. Like, if you're just trying to get through, like, I've used these questions in the corporate world many times when I've had ideas for new initiatives. And sometimes it's hard to get buy-in either from your boss or your colleagues who would help you like actually carry it out, whoever it is. you know these questions are just give you a simple way to kind of truncate your ask and say, hey, there's this very concrete idea. I think we all have this problem. Here's how I think we can solve it. And it's an easy way to get people on board with your idea. So idea validation is more than just kind of knowing that you're working on the right thing. It's also making sure that other people can get excited about the thing that you're working on. And so that's it. That's the questions. It is that simple. I highly, highly recommend, again, just keeping these questions in your back pocket. Snag a little screenshot here if you haven't yet. Just, get them. They will help you in life. If not at a hackathon, then at the, when you're later on in your lives in the corporate world, or maybe you're trying to start your first company and you don't know what to build, anything. If you're just like, I'm stuck, I don't know where to go, ask yourself these questions. And then you'll have at least a better idea of what's immediately necessary for you to do next. Just kind of went over this right here. So not just for hackathons. Everything here that you see as alternatives, I've used these questions for. I have used it for pitching a product. I've written sales pitches for many software platforms, and I've based all of them around forms of these questions and just taking those answers, and that's my pitch. I've worked in project management, started a lot of different, little initiatives, and this is how I always formed my initial like proposal to my boss or director or my peers. And also, this is true as well, negotiating with my landlord. I have had several cases in my life of, needing to ask for new appliances built in the past century or something and giving a good business reason as to why my landlord should make those improvements to the property. So that brings me to the end. Very quick presentation because those are very quick questions that have a lot of powerful impacts on whatever you're working on. So now I just want to take the rest of this time to, discuss with anyone here what you're working on, any questions that you have for me, about the process, about myself, about your projects even. Maybe you're not, sure what to do next. Please hit up the questions, right now. Everyone send me something. And I'm just going to sit here and chill, try to answer your questions. All right, looks like we've got a couple. I'm currently attempting to solve a challenge. Oh, yeah. So I mean, you could use these questions to help you if you're like working through uh, a challenge. I guess you have a pretty clear goal of how to get there, but it could be a good way of like maybe you have 4 or 5 different ideas of how you can approach the challenge, and you're not sure which one you should actually pursue. You could kind of use this to rank your different ideas against each other. So maybe like I've got 4 different options here, limited amount of time. Maybe you're doing it like a security challenge, and you're trying to like break into a network, and you can think of 4 different routes for you to try. um, you can kind of ask yourself these questions to compare them to each other and then see which one's going to have like the lowest level of effort for you to get in there and actually try something out. So yeah, what I'm going to do here too is I'm going to click back just for, looks like we had a couple latecomers as well. And I want everyone to, if you haven't, take a screenshot of these questions. I'm going to go back to the live Q&A slide, but I'm going to leave this up for a while, give everyone a chance to take a screenshot here. Oh, we got some questions coming in. Used to get a map to archive things in life. I mean, kind of, sure. Like you could use these questions to uh, plan out what you're going to be doing in life. Why not? I got no qualms with that. There, maybe the problem. What's the problem you're attempting to solve? It's like, okay, maybe you're trying to figure out what to do with your life. What are the current solutions? It's like, I don't know, get a job, work for 40 years, retire, die. Like that's one option. There's also like all of the other ways you could go about your life. Go for it. Yeah, I love that. Use these questions to plan out. Oh, another great question here. So losing interest in between, let me go back to for any other new folks. Great. So losing interest in between the challenge is quite demotivating. How to get back on the track of working. Yeah. Okay. So that's hard. I feel like that's something that, everyone experiences at work. I mean, I don't know about, hopefully not at hackathons. Hopefully you're excited about what you've chosen to work on at a hackathon, but definitely at work or in school, you do lose motivation on what you're working on from time to time. Um, that might be a little bit bigger than this session, but what I would recommend here is just to treat it as a challenge for yourself. Just use these questions and think like, how quickly can I get through this thing that I no longer want to do? Maybe it's like studying for an organic chemistry test or something. You're like, oh, why did I sign up for this class? I guess you could ask yourself these questions to try to decide how you're going to study to just get it over with and learn the material that you need to learn. Or maybe you can just kind of ask yourself, like, why am I even here? Am I here for the right reasons? Um, again, this goes like way beyond my initial thought for these questions, but go for it. Yeah, I would love to see people asking themselves questions more often in general. The session is fire. Oh, thank you. Um, Here, what is a good way to collect all the data to analyze it before preparing a solution and starting to prepare the README? Okay, that is a wonderful question. So this gets into like initial market research, which is just some of my favorite stuff. So let me bring it back to the questions here and just, okay. So this step here is when I think you can do a lot of data collecting. So for what is the current solution to the problem, this is like really analyzing the market. What is every possible thing that's out there that you could do instead of building something new? Because the best way to think about things is not like, a lot of people like at hackathons or just in life or developers really like in their personalities, you have a bias to action and you just want to make something new. But you sometimes when you're starting a project, you need to think more like an economist and think about like, you know, I need to convince myself not what is the best solution, but I need to convince myself that building a solution is going to be better off overall than doing nothing. Because there's always like the easiest solution is always to just do nothing and keep something as a status quo and do something, like use a solution that's already out there for you. So this is a great opportunity to just kind of collect the data and then really like map out, you know, all right, so the variables that I was trying to, solve in number three and four, maybe I was trying to save time or I was trying to like reduce the cost of something with whatever my product is. But I see that all these other solutions out there, like, yeah, it might take a little bit longer or it might cost a little bit more money, but you have to do a little bit of a cost benefit analysis and see like, is it going to take way too much work for you to implement whatever your solution is to actually get the benefits that your product has versus another. And so the best thing I can think of right there is, like here's a practical example. 10, 15 years ago, not everything was digitized. We were still printing all our documents on paper. And it was only just recently, in like the past 5, 6 years, that PDFs have really started to be embraced at a lot of corporations. I know that's crazy to hear, but it's totally true. And a lot of times the reason was because literally the cost of buying scanners and then paying for the labor of having people scan paper costs more money than, just the upkeep of the current processes of storing paper in a warehouse that they already bought. And that sounds bonkers. It's like, why would you keep, using paper? It's like, well, for a long time until like scanners got cheaper or, became easier to like contract people to do just like scanning project jobs, corporations would just keep paper around. So that's kind of part of that, using that data and making sure you're building the right thing. It's like, yeah, it still sounds crazy. It's like, oh, why were all these places using paper? But it's like, at the end of the day, the savings they would get from having everything be digitized were so far away. They would have had to spend so much money like on cloud storage because it didn't used to be cheap. They would have had to spend a whole bunch of money on, just like labor that knows how to use these systems. Not everyone used to know like how to scan things and upload them to whether it's a Box account or a Dropbox or a shared network drive. Like, that's just a life example of many large companies sticking with paper. Let's go through here. See. Oh, but okay. I guess your question was more along the lines of like ways to analyze it. But yeah, I guess the cost benefit analyses. It's like really pick your variables. What are you trying to focus on? And like, is it going to be worth someone implementing it? Because at the end of the day, if you're going to build really cool tech that like does a lot, but it's going to be too hard for people to use or too costly for people to use or just take too much time for them to set up, just there's kind of no point in building it because no one's going to want to use it even though it's shiny. Cool. Someone said, I spend too much time thinking about an idea, trying to make it as perfect as possible. How to avoid perfectionism? Great question. Honestly, if you just stick to these questions, you're not going to be focused on trying to do everything. So I think that's inherently a way to avoid perfectionism. Is if you're just focusing on there's this problem and I want to make it easier for me to handle it. And that doesn't mean solve the problem always. It might just mean like you're trying to, you know, hack something together quickly that makes it easier to manage a problem. That's just as valuable, if not more valuable. And, I think sometimes like a lot of engineers want to work on the thing that fixes something. But what we really need is more of a, like collectively as a people, in my eyes, are people who want to focus on, like harm reduction. So I think about like, uh, maybe an earthquake is always going to happen, right? And so it would be cool if you could like come up with some sort of technology that's just going to prevent the earthquake, but that's not realistic. What we really need are tools to, live with the consequences of the inevitable earthquake. And it might not be exciting to like want to go work on a project that does that because like at the end of the day, when someone's using your technology, it's going to be because there's an earthquake and there's still going to be a lot of tragedy. So it's not exciting to like want to start that project that is still going to lead to dealing with an earthquake, but it was super worth your time if you're just coming up with something that says, hey, maybe only a few houses like have to be lost, or maybe only a few people have to, like suffer the real consequences of this natural disaster because we built this detection system. So you know it can still be exciting to work on something that's not perfect and is not like eradicating a problem, but it's just making it easier to work on it. So I just think that part of it's just a little bit of a mindset shift. Um, and then the other part is just like staying focused. Like just because you can build everything doesn't mean you should. And that's what these questions are for. It's like, you start with your problem, you're going along, you're building out your tech, and then you say, oh, I could also add this feature that does this. Oh, I could also add this feature that does this. And you just got to think to yourself, like, yeah, I could. And maybe it would make it more perfect. But at the end of the day, is it really like just a waste of time because it's not helping that fundamental underlying problem? Um, so yeah, that's how I personally would try to focus on getting away from perfectionism. Uh, yeah, does anyone have any other questions here? These are great. I love what everyone's asking. I'll give everyone just a couple more minutes here. If I missed your question and you're like, why are you asking for more? I asked something. I'm sorry, just send it again. There were a lot of messages. Just throw your questions back in the chat. Oh, we got some emojis. Cool, cool, cool. Uh, I don't really know. Maybe that's an inside joke and it's a question, but hey, all right, here we go. I've got a lot of ideas before stating something. And go to start. Okay, great. So basically, it sounds like this person has a lot of ideas. They don't know much about the technology, and they want to start their project. Well, there's two routes here, right? It's like it could be, yeah, okay, you need to go learn this technology before you can build this thing, which I think is what a lot of engineers default to. Um, but there's always the like other option here of maybe you can communicate your idea, communicate what you can currently, what you are able to, and then get other people on your team who do know the pieces that you're missing. Ultimately, you know, I would always recommend that because maybe you can find someone who is, familiar with React or is familiar with Django, and you tell them like, hey, like I don't know this tech, but I have this problem. Here's what I think we can build. You know, here's what I think we would need to do to build it using Django, using React, and here's where how I can help in guiding this process. Could you help in building this? And that's the beginning of a cool partnership. At the end of the day, like it's always going to be better to have more than yourself working on something too. So it's just kind of up to you. Like, yeah, you could go out, you can go learn Django, or if you really have this burning idea, like don't let the tech be the blocker. There's someone out there who knows Django and doesn't know what to build. And you can be that person to inspire them and say, like, hey, help me build this thing. And then now you've got a team. Great question. Does anyone have anything else burning? Does anyone else want me to go back to anything in the presentation? All right, how can we try to attempt a problem ideation during a hackathon where we have a really short amount of time? Okay, that's awesome question. For hack, just think about the scale of the problem, right? For me, like in my example, uh, trying to find retro jerseys to buy on the internet, it's a small, inconsequential problem. That's perfect for a hackathon in my eyes. Trying to cure cancer, immense problem. Way bigger problem, way more impactful problem than trying to find jerseys online. But it's going to need a lot more expertise and a lot more brain power, and the stakes are just too high for a hackathon. So, those are the kind of extreme examples. Just really think about the scale of the issue, and that's how you know what's a good amount for a short amount of time. I would think, you know, run through this exercise a couple of times, and if you find at the end, like, when you get to that question 5 and you're like, okay, what's the execution plan, like what do we have to do next, and you're like, oh, I can't do that in 48 hours, great, throw it away, start on, come up with another problem. There are problems everywhere you look. Like, you might even be sitting at a table that's wobbling, that's your problem. Like, it's really easy. Just spend the first 20-30 minutes of your hackathon coming up with problems, you and your team, and it's going to seem ridiculous, but you might hear something from someone else like, oh, maybe someone's got a problem of like not being able to, I don't know, learn how to tie their shoes or something. And you find like, oh, there's like hardly any good YouTube videos teaching you how to tie your shoes. Like, that could, that's, even though if you like don't write any code and you just like record a video of you tying your shoes, crazy example, that'd be a great hackathon problem to solve. It's like the real process is just being able to identify something and try to fix it. And then also on the other side, like, okay, so maybe you don't have to think, like, that's a good comment there. So you don't have to think about a small scale problem, but it's just, that's the easier, that's the lowest, barrier to like get you started. Maybe you do pick a bigger problem. Maybe it's not as big as curing cancer, but it's like, um, maybe it's something in fintech, and you want it to be, you want to find like a quicker way to communicate with your accountant. Like, you want an easier way to send information and have them get a ping that there's an action item. It's like, okay, that sounds like a lot higher stakes than finding jerseys, but the like infrastructure around it is still smaller. Like, it's, you're trying to build like a notification system, right? So that's another, like, that's a bigger problem, not as big as cancer, but it's still workable. It's still something you can try to tackle in 48 hours. And even if you can't, just by working through these problems, or sorry, by working through these 5 questions, you're going to be able to pitch what you've done so far and what needs to be done left. So you could be at the end of your hackathon, you don't have anything usable, right? But you can still participate and you can still be judged on your idea and your execution towards your ultimate goal. And just being able to communicate that effectively in a way that someone who doesn't know what you've been working on for the past 2 days can just jump in and hear, like, oh, yeah, cool, that is a problem. Oh, great, I can see how what you were building would fix that. Oh, you didn't get all the way there. That's great. I would still love to see more. Like, as long as, once you give that person like kind of your story around it, nice and quick, easy to understand, even if the tech doesn't work, they can still have a favorable opinion of your project because they can see where you're headed. Cool. Great, phenomenal questions. I've got time. If y'all have time, happy to answer more questions. Uh, I'm just going to sit back awkwardly and just wait, see if anything else comes through. Great. Yeah, pointing out. So your brain still thinks it has to be a fully working, fleshed out project to submit. Yeah, it absolutely doesn't. The whole point is not like, you're not trying to ship perfect code in 48 hours. You're trying to just be inspired and like have some joy in building the things you're building. Because I've got to tell you, like that's something unique to this kind of hackathon world. There's like, going to be a lot of times for a lot of y'all in the future where you're just kind of working on a project, that's maybe handed to you, and that's fine. You know, but like what you get to do in the weekend is show like, hey, I thought of this problem, or my friend thought of this problem here, and we're trying to solve it. And we're really excited about it. We didn't get all the way there, but look at all this work we did, like for a mission that we can care about. You're not always going to get to work on the things you want to work on. So it's a shame if you don't like stick around to like show off your project that's incomplete, because it was still something that you spent like hard effort on and you were excited about working on it in the first place. So get someone else excited about how far you got and where you still could go. It's really not about the end. It is about, you know, everything you've done so far, what you want to do, and then the reason behind it all. Like what was the problem that drove you to do this? So yeah, I totally understand why you might be like shy to show off something that's incomplete, but it's all about conveying the journey. Yeah, when trying to build a project, is it a best practice for dividing the whole code into smaller parts so that we can complete it quickly? Yeah, hackathon or not, that's how you got to do it. Like, there's very few things where I'm gonna say like, oh, that is the way, but that is the way. Just like everything, and like you want things to be small, you want to be able to delegate them, you want people to specialize, and you want to ensure that each little part, you know, has proper documentation. That's an added thing I'm going to put there. Keep it small, chunk everything out. You have, person one does this chunk of work, person two does this chunk of work, person three does this. Put it all together. And here, someone asks, related to that, what if they want to intern as a beginner? Then what do they have to do? Well, I mean, look, beginners can partake in hackathons just like experts can. At the end of the day, everyone can identify a problem and everyone can try to solve it. You might try a different thing to solve it than someone who's got 10 years of coding experience, but maybe on the problem that you're trying to tackle, your perspective actually gets you a way better solution. Maybe an engineer would see the same issue and just start trying to build out this crazy tech stack, but maybe you just come up with like a process solution that doesn't require any code. You just like say, hey, here's my fresh perspective on tackling this problem. Boom, you just killed the hackathon. So it's not always about like how much experience you have and like what code went into your project. It's about the energy behind it, the reason behind it, and what you learned over the weekend. Yeah, someone said partner with a UX design person. Yeah, I mean, they're useful. there's a there's a reason every company needs UX now in droves. Turns out, like at the end of the day, you're only building technology for people to interact with it. UX folks are there just to make sure that people can actually understand and want to use and can learn how to use your product. So uh, if you can get UX in from the very beginning, you're not going to have a whole bunch of technical debt and weird back end stuff that needs to be reworked later. So, of course, if you can get UX eyes in on something early, go for it. And I extend that further too, not even just UX, but like, if you can get some business or economics or humanities or hell, journalism majors, it doesn't matter. Like, just other people who have different perspectives than you, everyone's got a different skill set. Like, add some wild cards to your team. Maybe you're coming in and you're like, again, oh, we're blockchain everything. We're all coming in here to, build something on Ethereum. That's cool. But are you trying to build something just for people like you? Probably not. So, in your people, who might also be users so that they can see, the value of what you're trying to work on, and they can add their perspective at every point. Because, maybe, oh yeah, so someone also said right there, they bring up the show Silicon Valley. Yeah, 100%. They built out an entire platform and no one had any idea how to use it. Everyone just wanted to use Piper Chat. that's a perfect example. Maybe if they had someone in UX early on, they would have said, yeah, I don't need any of that. I just want video chat that's not laggy. So yeah, that's get more perspectives always. Uh, let's see here. Someone wants to know how to integrate payment systems with DSO creators. Okay, that's a cool idea. I have no clue how to help with that, but it sounds like a good opportunity for for reaching out to some of your fellow hackers and finding someone else who maybe maybe knows a thing or two about those platforms. Uh, yeah, okay. So someone's asking, how do you get a good project idea for a hackathon? They try to do something stupendous, but they can't start a normal project. How do you get rid of that? Start with a problem that you yourself experience. That's the best way. You know, the same way, just like how at the beginning here I was talking about my affinity for retro basketball jerseys. You know, that's a problem to me. Is trying to find the the jerseys. Yeah, limited. You mentioned you have a limited amount of time. It's so pick a problem that you yourself experience. That'll help save you a lot of time because you know the problem well. You know the like all the current solutions to addressing it because theoretically you've tried to fix this before on in your day to day. And then worried about the limited amount of time. It's like again, if your problem is a medical issue and you have no medical training, don't pick that. But if your problem is you know something about like just like I want to save time in doing this daily task, perfect. That's the exact perfect hackathon problem. And if you're worried about kind of like being able to tackle it alone, don't get other people in your group. Always, again with the more perspectives, just like you know, bring some friends or make some new friends. I'm sure if you're dealing with this problem on a daily basis, you could walk around a room. There's going to be a whole lot of people like you who've probably felt this problem before, and that's how you can meet the people. Just walk up and say like, "Hey, do you have issues tying with your shoes?" Someone's like, "Oh no." Okay, cool. Move on to the next one. Hey, do you have issues tying your shoes? Like, does it get annoying every day? And they're like, "Yeah." Okay, great. Now you can both work on a project about tying shoes. So, you know, again, that's always the like problem first, ask before you hack. Ask yourself, ask your friends. Ask yourself these questions, ask your friends, does this make sense? Would this help you? And that's the key. Yes, listen, need is the mother of invention. Exactly. It is. What do you need right now? Make that. Someone says, "Hey, if the hackathon describes the challenges ahead of time, are you allowed to think and plan before it starts? You just can't. Uh, you just can't start actually work on them until the hackathon, right?" Yeah, that's true. You can't write any code. You don't want to be doing any like planning. You don't want to write anything down. But of course, like by hearing about a challenge, your brain's going to be thinking about it. So like you can always think. There's no rule against like thinking before you hack. That's probably that's probably encouraged. Just don't actually work on it. Um, and even then, if you're gonna tackle a challenge that's like kind of predetermined or like maybe you know that you want to enter a category that's using a particular API. All that is just one extra confine that doesn't stop you from being able to ask yourselves these questions. Because no matter if you're entering a challenge that's requiring to use a particular piece of technology, like at the end of the day, you're going to have to build something with that technology. So you still want to make sure that your technology is tied to a problem, you're doing the research, and that you're still building problem based, need based technology um, that just happens to use that technology is the best means to getting through. A lot of times you'll have people show up to a hackathon and see like, oh, there's a Google Cloud category, and then there's a Twilio category, and there's a DSO category, and they just want to build something that checks all the boxes. Like it's hosted in Google Cloud, it interacts with the DSO API. Done, I did it. It's like cool, but me as a user, is there a real use case for me to want to like access a web app that interacts with DSO and then sends me a text notifier? Maybe there is. But if you just started with the tech and you have to backtrack and explain the use case to me, you're fighting a losing battle. So start with the problem, see how you can put the tech in there, and that's where the beauty really comes up. So taking it back here, right? I wasn't thinking about that like jersey example with any particular tech in mind. I was just like, hey, it's hard to find retro jerseys. You got to look at so many places. I want to build a dashboard that shows me, like when I type in a name, I can see every jersey available online for purchase. Cool. Now I can see, all right, so the hackathon that I'm attending has a Twilio category. Oh, Twilio can send text messages. Boom. That's clear. So now I can see, like, I can enter that category and say, all right, in my journey, I want my app to be this dashboard, and I want it to, like, I want to be able to set up an alert system where I put in a name. Maybe you put in Michael Jordan or Alonzo Mourning or something, right? And then now you have Twilio sending you a text, hey, New Jersey available from this source. Now you've used the tech. The tech is an integral part of your solution, and you're still building something problem based. That's a hackathon winner to me. All right. We've got any other last minute questions here? I need some water soon. Giving it a second. Yeah, someone said ask that question on Stack Overflow. Yeah, ask every question on Stack Overflow. Like, and if you're on Stack Overflow helping other people out, God bless you, because like that's the only way to be a way to be a developer these days. Someone said, "Am I on Discord?" Yeah, I'm in the MLH Discord. I believe my name is also Brandon underscore MLH. Um, yeah. Okay. Uh, my vocal cords getting tired. I could probably go for a glass of water here. I'll give it a couple more seconds if there's any more last minute questions here. Uh, how do you get started with, or how did I get started with MLH? Hey, that's a great question. Many moons ago, I worked at the University of Arizona for the science library, and I was running a makerspace. And then I heard about this cool group called Hack Arizona that was deciding to start running hackathons on the campus that were going to be sponsored by MLH. I'm like, oh, that's cool. A hackathon sounds very similar to like invention competitions and business case competitions that I used to go to. And then I learned more about hackathons. They came to me and they needed to use my space, my resources on the campus that I was managing. And so I worked closely with those Hack Arizona organizers and just, helped support these hackathons each year. And in doing that, because they were MLH sponsored hackathons, I met MLH representatives. Then, I leave, move up north and start working in tech at all of these various companies. 6 or 7 years go by, and I decide I need to get out of the regular tech world. I saw a job opening at MLH, and what do you know? My life has come full circle. So that's my long short story of how I got involved with MLH, and that's a pretty similar story to most everyone at MLH now at this point. Is we had some sort of positive interaction either with MLH or just the hacker community at large, and it stuck with us. And then years later, we wanted to come back and sort of facilitate the same community that helped build us up in the first place. Um, so if you are also someone who has a really positive, view of hackathons, I recommend you start organizing some. And if you're already organizing, great, organize some more, be the best organizer you can. And then you can always apply to be an MLH coach. That's actually the program that I run, is our coaches program. So that's the next level of involvement. Or maybe you're a few years into your career already and you're like, yeah, I've done the work, I want to just stay involved. You can mentor. you don't just have to keep showing up to these like virtual hackathons. You can find all of your local, uh, hackathons, or do a quick little Google search, and they all need mentors. So there's always ways you can get involved. So I said, "Why are you so cool?" I'm glad you think that. uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's just it's just who I am. Um, all right, we're getting a little closer on time. Still got about 10 minutes if anybody wants them. Yeah, someone says you can be the best coder, but at some point you're going to hire others to do the work. Yeah, I mean, that's one way to look at it, and that's true. But hopefully, in the next generation of tech, we can kind of view it more as uh, you're going to hire others to own the work and to help you with the work, and not so much, like bringing other people in, just delegating out. Like, learn how to delegate, learn how to work with others now, um, but keep that sort of like, you know, co-working mindset, and you'll have the most fun working on projects, and you'll have better results going forward. Someone says, "Hey, how can I join MLH as a student?" Yeah, so similar thing. Um, if you like hackathons, start organizing them. That's the next step. If you have some experience organizing hackathons, maybe organize a hackathon that's MLH sponsored. So if you were running like a small scale hackathon and you want to take it to the next level, you can always apply for it to be an MLH event, and then we would come with our sponsorships and all of our good stuff and help you make it an MLH event. So that's the next level. And then once you've done that, so if you've got your organizing experience, maybe you even have organizing experience at an MLH event, then the next step is applying for the coaches program. So that's what you can do as a student. Yeah, someone says the most valuable thing about doing the work yourself is being able to fix problems and not be in the mercy of developers' hands. That's true, but it's not always about doing it yourself too. It's like you just want to make sure that this is a morbid phrase, but uh, that the hit by a bus rule doesn't apply. So it doesn't mean that everyone at your company like needs to know how to do everything to avoid an issue. You just need enough safeguards in place so that if any key person was quote unquote hit by a bus, you have a plan of unearthing that information. It doesn't mean that like you need to have someone who can just like, hey, our Ruby developer's gone and we don't have anyone else who knows Ruby, so we're screwed. No, that's not true. Like you could just make sure there's enough documentation in place so that if the worst was to happen, you can get another Ruby developer to step in and say, "Oh, cool, I know exactly what's going on here." Yeah, someone said at some point you transition from coder to business. It's like you don't have to. You can. A lot of people do. Um, but I think what happens is, you know, less of a transition and more of an epiphany that you were always a business person from day one. Unless you were just writing code for yourself to interact with, um, then there is like there's a business of an end user, right? As long as there's end users who are not you, you're in business. You're just the same way that like a barista is in business. You're making something that someone else is going to be consuming. We're all in business, whether your major is finance, accounting, marketing, or computer science, journalism, even public administration. Like everything is, we're all in business. So like it looks like the natural career projection is like software developer one, two, three, and then you become a project manager, and then you become a product manager, and then you find yourself to being like VP of product or something, and now you've said like, oh man, I've gone full business, full corporate. I'm not writing any code. It's like you were doing business the whole time from step one. If you can like recognize that from the very beginning, that everything you're doing is part of this greater operation, and at the end of the day, every business is just trying to uh, you know, solve problems for people, like then you'll probably feel better about your work and be more certain about knowing what you want to do next. Just, am I a coder or a business? I mean, look, like, do you want receipts? Like, you want do you want my degree? I mean, I've written code. I've not written code. I've had jobs explaining, uh, you know, what code other people need to build. But no, I have not exchanged code for money in several years. Um, I wouldn't say that I'm full business, but I mean, I guess I am now. I just think that I don't like thinking about this sort of like this bucket of you're one or the other. It's just like people have different skills. Some people's skills are knowing like how to identify the users of a product, or some people's skills are knowing how to legally count the money that you recoup from building this product. And some people's skills are building the product, but you're all in the same business. And the second that you kind of treat it as we're all on this same team together and we're all equally necessary in this process, like just because you're the one writing the back end of an app doesn't mean that you can walk away and do it without everybody else. I implore you to go learn how to, like handle charging, your app, like collecting taxes in every jurisdiction, or like learning how to get the right users using it and how to run beta tests and how to build a UI. Like if you can do all of that, great. But like at the end of the day, you know, we're all business people. Just some people are working on the product, some people are testing it, some people are selling it. It's all the same. Yeah, someone said VC invest in your team, not just the product. That's true. I mean, if if you if you raise money as an individual just for your product, just know that you're probably going to be replaced at some point because the goal is going to be to flip you to a private equity firm and then instill their own team. Like, so it's so true. Like, never try to be a lone wolf in this tech industry. Always have a team around you. Make sure that team has, diverging responsibilities, and that everyone's bought into the same mission. Everyone can clearly, like, you want it to be so that whether your project is 3 people or 300 people, everyone at your company or everyone at your organization or whatever it is you're working on, you want to make sure that everyone involved can give you the answers to these 5 questions here of your company's mission. Like, you want to make sure everyone can give that pitch of what was going on. Okay, now we're like actually at time. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Uh, yeah, snag your screenshots here if you haven't yet. I noticed some other people joined towards the end. Um, long story short, ask before you hack. Who are you asking? You're asking yourself. And yeah, hope you learned something. Thank you.